All right. So I'm going to talk about the F word. Titter. You figure I'm going to talk dirty, huh? The other F word. Failure. So let me start with this photo. Pretty lady, huh? Classy. Confident. Maybe even rich. Know who she is? Silence. Okay, suppose I give you a hint. Oh, her. J.K. Rowling. And if I told you that Rowling was a failure, would you believe me? A failure. Failed marriage. Living on welfare. Submitted her book to 12 different publishers. Wrote the book while sitting in a pub with her infant daughter in a basket. Some failure. One of the wealthiest women on the planet right now. So I'd like to do a survey, if I can. Here's a survey. I'd like to see how many of you have ever failed. Oh, almost everybody. Almost. But for those of you that didn't tell me you failed, I got some big news for you. You will. Count on it. It's just a part of life. And history, our history, is replete with failures. Lincoln, we know all the stories. Edison, 1,100 patents, but Edison was hearing impaired. Imagine if the first time when Edison tried to make the filament for the light bulb, imagine if when he failed, he creeped into a corner, sucked his thumb, and said, "This world is dark, I want no part of it." No television, no photos, no sound, no microphone. You know, my friends would say to me, "Well, what are you going to speak about, Secher?" I said, "Failure." And instantly I got a nervous laugh. And then a pregnant pause. And after the pregnant pause, they proceeded to tell me a whole list of people who had failed. Not themselves, people who had failed. There is a phrase that we all know from Descartes. Cogito ergo sum. Remember that phrase? Well, St. Augustine turned it around and said, Fallor ergo sum. I fail, therefore I am. Failure need not be super failure. Failure can be a lesson, and a lesson that we come out on the other end of it having learned that lesson and then succeeded. Matter of fact, the word success is from the Latin succidere. And succidere really means to come after. Success coming after failure. The problem with failure often is we're loath to talk about it. We're loath to let it happen. We're loath to learn the lesson from it. We're loath to deal. I I want to tell you a story about a friend. He's a consultant in a very, very small industry, but he's one of the experts. He's had maybe 20 jobs, all of them sort of successful. But here's what happens. He gets a job, and he lasts in the job maybe 3 months to 6 months, and then he's canned. And every single time in those 20 jobs, his story is it was somebody else. I didn't do it. They didn't understand. They didn't know. They couldn't do it. Always somebody else. But Our Lady Rawlings here, Rawlings said, failure helped me to strip away the inessential. I began to stop pretending that my life was anything other than what it was. And from rock bottom, I was able to build a solid foundation for the rest of my life. All right, here's another. Ooh. I failed over and over again, and that is why I succeed. Michael Jordan, a failure? All right, 12,317 points for Michael Jordan. But let's realize that he missed 24,816 times. Would we call Michael Jordan a failure? Or how about Babe Ruth? Babe Ruth, 714 home runs, but he struck out about 1,400 times. A failure? No. I want to tell you about an experiment done by Dr. James Pennebaker. He's a physician and a professor at the University of Texas. Pennebaker asked students at the university to do an experiment. They were to write 3 times for 3 days, for 15 minutes each day. One group was to write about the dark places, some of the failures of their life, and the other group was to just write about anything. Well, here's the results. Pennebaker found that those that were willing to face those failures, those that were willing, came out of it less medical problems, less stress, less anxiety, and here's a biggie, better grades. Willing to face the failure and deal. I have a theory. Now, I'm not sure that the theory, because I'm not a psychologist, but it's Secher's theory. For my friends, when my friends were so nervous and I got that nervous laugh, this is my theory, that the laughter was because all of a sudden somebody was talking to them about failure and they were having a problem dealing. They didn't want to tell me that they had failed. I would look awful in there. They would look awful in my eyes if I knew that they had failed. They didn't want to deal. So we have choices with failure. Choices. Are we going to be bitter or make it better? That's the line. Bitter or better? Are we willing to hold up the mirror of ourselves and say, hey, how can I learn from this? Hey, what can I do better? Hey, can I improve? Hey, can I come out of this pathway, taking a path that leads to going through the morass and coming out on the other side, smelling like a rose? A sociologist by the name of Kelly King coined a term, a successful failure. I really like that term, a successful failure. And then Abe Maslow talks about self-actualization, really learning from the whole scene, really learning and coming out actualized, a success. Can I show you now the world's greatest failure? Charlie! Charlie, the world's greatest failure. But here's something with Charlie. Every single time, Charlie goes back to kick the ball. Charlie doesn't give up. And Charlie, following the scene, Charlie is constantly analyzing, what did I do wrong? What did I do? And he keeps on going. Oh, Charlie. Yay for you, Charlie Brown. There's another element, an addition to all this. Our kids. With our kids, we want to prevent them from failure. You don't dare fail, kid. You'll look bad, I'll look bad. I want to paint a scene for you, if I may. Paint a scene. A 1.5-year-old kid. And the kid is about to take his very first steps. Now, we've all gone through this scene. Kid's about to take the first few steps, and everybody is standing around that kid, cheering. And a kid takes 1 or 2 steps, and boom, falls on its tush. Kid works very hard and picks itself up. Picks itself. Nothing's impossible, I have found, 'cause when my chin is on the ground, I pick myself up, dust myself off, start all over again. That little kid picks itself up all by itself most of the time, tries again another couple of steps, falls down, picks itself up, and finally 5 or 6 or 7 steps, falls into the arms of its mother. And everybody around cheers and screams and yells, "You did it, hooray for you, Charlie Brown, you kicked the football." Everyone cheers that kid. It's the last time we let that kid fail. You recall the documentary film showing parents in New York City braving foul weather and camping out on the streets of New York in order to be the very first to register their child for the preschool. Preschool! And OMG, I call it the OMG syndrome, the oh my God syndrome. Oh my God, my kid's not going to get into the preschool, and if it doesn't get into the preschool, it's not going to get into Harvard. I failed my child, I failed. We need to let our kids fail. We need to let them know failure is okay. Suppose I were able to create some sort of pill, some sort of elixir, just drink it down, and for the rest of your life, you would never have to worry about failure. Well, here's my counsel. Don't do it! Don't you dare do it! Because failure is a part of life. I came across an HBO documentary a couple of weeks ago, and it's a documentary about parents pushing their kids into athletics. And there's one father there who is screaming from the stands at his son, "I've never seen anything so stupid in my whole life." The kid doesn't even seem to want to play football. And then there's the twin boys, tennis. And the mother keeps on insisting with the boys that they have to be tennis stars. Why? Because God wants them to be tennis stars. God wants them. So if the kids don't make it, not only have they failed mother, they failed God. OMG, oh my God. Kids need to know that if they fail, we still love them. That if they fail, we're there to help them and support them. I want to give you a statistic. Suicide among teenagers is not just from bullying. It's from kids who feel they failed to live up to their parents' expectations, and they failed. Let me tell you a story, a personal story. I had a business way back in the 70s in California, and it was a business going around the world recording seminars and speeches and making cassettes available to the participants. The business failed. The business really failed. I couldn't sustain it. So I was about to go on my last job. And as I was getting into the bus in Pittsburgh, there was somebody there who said, "Alan, let's sit together." I knew him slightly. He said to me, "Alan, how's the business?" I said, "Terrible." I said, "This is our last job." He said, "Well, what are you going to do next?" I said, "I don't know." He said, "Well, what would you like to do?" I said, "What I'd really like to do is what I've wanted to do all my life, is produce television for children." He said to me, "Boy, do I have a job for you." He was the chairman of a search committee for a new producer of a children's show, CBS Chicago. I knew where I was going next. And another corollary of that, I attempted to make a feature film in the early 70s about the Holocaust, children in the Holocaust. I knocked on every door, and every door in Hollywood, including having lunch with Steven Spielberg. Every door in Hollywood said no one would ever go to watch a film about the Holocaust. So I stopped. I didn't give up, I stopped. Fast forward, mid-90s, I got a chance from PBS to produce my Holocaust film. I just wasn't going to give up. Did the film with the help of actress Ellen Burstyn. And the PS to that, I won 2 Emmys for it. I just wouldn't give up. Never, ever give up, Charlie Brown. And one quick last story. Alabama-Auburn game a few weeks ago. Young kid, 8 years old, Casey was his name. And Casey was Alabama Roll Tide squared. Casey sitting in the stands, hysterically crying. His father turns to him and says, "Casey, you can't win every game, but remember that feeling. And the next day, you take that feeling to learn more and be better." Way to go, Pop. Way to go. Thank you.